are listening to WHOA Podcast, coming to you from Gainesville, Florida. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the WHOA GNV Podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa. My name is Colin Austin, and to my left is the rootinest, tootinest, shootinest, hootinest scooter cowboy, Michael Dees. What is up, man?
Did you write that one too?
I did not write that one. That was Joanna giving it a really good go.
Makes me sound like an IHOP breakfast entree. The root and tootinest.
Dude, it's great, man. Dude, I'm so pumped about this episode. You guys, today on the show, we have my good friend Heath Padgett, host of RV Entrepreneur Podcast, a world traveler, really like a U.S. traveler, world traveler, and co-founder of campgroundbooking.com. Dude, what is up?
What's up, man? It's been like 6 years.
I know, man. All right, so let's just dive into this. Actually, real quick before we do, because all right, you guys, just to give you a little bit of background, Heath drives all over the place in an RV. He's got a really cool story. We're gonna dive into it. He's got his wonderful wife and daughter now. Like, you guys. You're taking the child on the road too, man. This is great. Like, I cannot even wait to get into all this. But before we do, let's give some love to one of our sponsors. Mad love to Andy Mauldin of Watson Realty Corp in the Tioga office. You guys, I set this up on purpose because I'm like, if you are tired of traveling all over the United States in your RV, Heath, and you're looking to settle down and, settle down a little, get into a home, give my friend Andy a call. You can reach him at 352-262-1047 or email him at AndyM, that's ANDYM, at WatsonRealtyCorp.com. You guys, Andy is an ACR. Do you know what an ACR is, Heath?
Nope.
No clue.
I was gonna try to come up with something witty. I got nothing.
An ACR. He is an Alachua County resident. That's what we define the people who are like Gainesville, like originals, like born and raised.
OGs.
They've been here, the OGs. Andy is an OG, and you guys call or text him. Again, his number is 352-262-1047, and tell him that I sent you, and that Mike sent you. But really, I sent you. Was that good?
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, dude. So do you need to settle down in Gainesville? Maybe I got a great realtor for you, man.
Well, if I do, I'll give him a call.
Get off the road, yeah. So Andy, thanks so much for supporting our podcast, man. You guys, please make sure that you are supporting our sponsors. These guys fund this thing and make this all possible, so that way we can continue to make this dream live on. Andy, I love you, brother. Thank you so very much. And Heath Padgett, dude, what is up?
Nothing much, man. I feel like I was just in here singing "Do You Want to Buy a Scooter" to the tune of Frozen, and then now 6 years later have gone by, and so many things have happened. But honestly, since when we met, I've shared this story with so many people, like how we met and the ultimate, scooter buying experience and everything that I had from my one day here. But, I feel like that was a really cool mini chapter of a chapter of our lives. And I'm excited that, we got to meet.
So let's explain how we actually met. So you guys, so most people, we've done a couple of guests. Actually, you're the second now who isn't from Gainesville. It's very Gainesville focused, really building up the community. We have these missions that we're out to accomplish.
I used to work in the community for a place called New Scooters for Life. So.
That's right. That's right. So let's tell everybody about this little story, because this is really, really cool. So you and your incredible wife, Alyssa, were out to make a documentary, and it was called Hourly America.
Correct.
And I'm going to explain it the way I remember going down, and then you can give us your
Sounds
version,
good.
right?
Yeah.
But I remember...
I feel like we got a voicemail or something.
I feel like I remember, yeah, maybe there was a voicemail, but I feel like Andrea came into the office and was like, yo, we got this email.
Probably some telemarketer solicitor.
Yeah, it seemed like some sort of solicitation or something. It was like, hey, like, you know, we're filming this documentary and we've been traveling the country. We've been going to every state and filming out one business, one hourly position at a company in each state. And Andrea's like explaining this to me and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a scam. Just like throw that out. She's like, I don't know. And I'm like, and so like I think she actually went and started to do a little bit of digging or something, like a little bit of research, and like found out. And she was like, "No, I think this is actually legit," and like responded back to you. Do you remember when you sent us that email or
I was at a
call?
campground like 20 minutes away, and I can kind of share a little bit of the backstory in a minute, but most of the time I just sent out like an email, but every now and then I would just call. And at this point we had worked like 40 jobs across the country, and we were at a campground 20 minutes from here, and it was like a Sunday of a holiday weekend, I think.
Yeah.
And I remember I went to the pool, and I usually have to reach out to maybe like 5-6 places, maybe to get responses. And then towards the end of the trip, I got better at like finding places that I feel like would probably hire me. And I read so much on y'all's website that when I called, I dropped a couple lines or something like that. I may have mentioned like if I'm late, I'll bring donuts, core value 3,500 or whatever. And so and then I read on your website, I was like, oh, Colin, he mentioned that he was like a Backstreet, like he looked like a Backstreet Boy in his photo. There's just a couple things. And like, I remember after like 20 minutes of outreach, and I had only reached out to you guys in Gainesville, I went to the pool to like hang out with Alyssa, and she's like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be working to find our job in Gainesville. Like we need to leave here in a few days. And I said, no, this place is going to hire me. Like, I can just tell, like they seem like fun, like, cool people.
I got this wrapped up.
And then I think, was it you who called me?
I think it might have been.
Yeah, or emailed me. Yeah, I don't think it was Colin, but I think it may have been Michael. But anyway,
you spent countless hours trying to find the perfect place in Florida to go, and we were it.
So honestly, and again, I know we're kind of like jumping into the deep end of the story, not giving much context, but basically from at that point, having found probably 40 jobs, my whole process was like, I'd roll into a new place, I would Google search like businesses in Gainesville, Florida, and then if there was like a theme for that area, like I worked at a dairy farm in Wisconsin, but in this area, it was like a college town, and there was a ton of like bike and scooter shops and things like that. And naturally I would go to the ones that had the best reviews on Google. And then that would be like step one. And then I'd go a step past that and look at the website and be like, hey, do they seem like fun people that I want to spend a day working around and kind of highlighting? And I got on y'all's website. I was like, these people seem like a lot of fun. So like, it'd be a cool job for the day. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Destiny. So, and you guys came in, and now, to bring some context to our audience, that was when, like, we were trying to figure this out. I think it was December.
It was December.
December.
Because there's a team photo of us, and we all have like Christmas hats and everything.
Yeah, 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
You sure?
Yep.
Is it that long ago?
It was that long ago.
I thought it was 15. It was 14?
I got married in 2014, so if my timeline's wrong, it's bigger issues for me.
Okay. Dang, dude. So
it's confidence right there.
2014, and we were at our old location.
Mm-hmm.
You came in. We put you through the ringer. You were a tech. You got on the forklift a little bit, I remember.
I did.
Warehousing some stuff.
I think with Michael, maybe.
Yeah. And we even took a little sidecar ride in the Vespa sidecar, down to Tijuana Flats.
Yeah, we went to Tijuana Flats for lunch. Yeah.
Had lunch.
I've never done that since. It was awesome. I haven't been on a scooter since then.
Really?
Yeah, but I remember it being a blast.
Dude, it was so much fun.
Yeah. We need to put a scooter on the back of our RV. I'm leaving here tonight with a scooter.
Yes.
Nice.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, who has an RV and doesn't have a scooter?
We have so much under storage in our new RV. I don't even need to put like a mount on there.
Just push it right in.
Alyssa doesn't even have to know. We'll wake up tomorrow and just like pop the scooter.
Surprise! Colin is a really good salesperson. Michael is a really good salesperson. They just got me, babe. What do you want me to say?
Exactly. Get a little sidecar for Ellie, right?
That would be adorable. Yeah, probably not legal, but
probably not legal. So so I just remember, we really spent that entire day, and then after that, I'm like, whoa, we're like best friends now. Like, come, you can park your RV outside of our house, and we stayed up late that night, just talking about business, and we haven't seen each other since that night, but we've stayed in connection through social media and so many other ways, and it's been cool to watch y'all's journey. So what's happened in all of those years.
Yeah, so that whole year was our honeymoon, and also was meant to be like a 7-month road trip to go do this documentary. And like, we weren't planning to have an extended life on the road in an RV, but we learned a lot of skills that year, kind of like with you starting NSL4L and building skills in social media and doing all this stuff. And now you've got an agency. It was kind of like with us, we were like, well, 9 months in from never having filmed anything, we started getting people paying us to shoot videos for them or whatever. And we're like, hey, maybe we don't have to go back and get regular jobs. So that year after we did Hourly America was basically like trying to like build our business and like get things going. So we did some really fun projects where I got to do a 30-city book tour with an author who had a book coming out, and I did video stuff for him. And then we started getting other clients who wanted to shoot like maybe a book launch video or a course or like a conference or something like that. And so that next couple of years was just like filming anything that we could get our hands on. And then as we were like, oh, we can still kind of continue traveling and working from wherever. And so I started sharing our journey on my podcast and on our blog, basically saying like, this is how we're making our lives work on the road. We're traveling in RV or whatever. And that podcast did really well. And now it's a conference. We've grown like 100% year over year. With first year was like 120 people. This last year was 350. So it's all people like who are running a business from the road. Now we work with Winnebago. So they gave us the rig that we're in this year.
How did you find those people?
Who?
Like all the people who came to the conference for the first time.
Oh, my podcast.
Okay, so it was from that podcast. So how long did it take you to like build that podcast to a point where you're like, hey, everybody come to this conference?
Well, I mean, so we had this Facebook group that was growing too, because we were starting to like make friends with other people who are traveling in an RV and like running a business from their rig or whatever. So a lot of times it was like husband and wife entrepreneurs, but maybe they actually like had a remote team or whatever. And so part of it, we started this Facebook group it was originally called Make Money in RV, which sounded scammy. We got a lot of like bad people trying to join the group. So we changed it to the RV Entrepreneur, and it was better. But it was kind of just meant to make friends with other people who were trying to figure this out. And then from the podcast and that Facebook group, they both grew, and we're like, hey, we now have this decent like online community of people who are trying to do the same thing. Like, let's gather them in person. And the first year, it was like I started the podcast in February of 2016, and we announced the conference that November. And we were like, if we get 30 people to come together in person, that'd be really cool. And we ended up having 120 people show up for that first one. And so we had like a full-on conference with speakers, like, and other things like that. And then it grew from there, and it's done really well. And so, yeah, I guess it was like basically a year from like podcast launch to conference kind of thing.
Okay, so I need to take a couple steps back. Why? Remind me why you even started the Hourly America documentary. Like, what sparked that?
I was working a job in sales and software, and Alyssa was working for a nonprofit in New Orleans, and basically it was just like neither of us were in love with what we were doing. And so it was kind of like one of those things that was like, we want to travel, we want to do creative work that we enjoy, but we're not sure what that specific path is. So we kind of came up with the idea to like do a gap year and go find a new place to live outside of Texas because it's really hot there. And we just came up with a format. It could have been a lot of different ideas, but sure. I met up with a friend one day. He had done a series called 100 Days of Rejection on YouTube, Jia Zhang, and he has like a TED Talk that's done really well, and like a book called Rejection Proof, which is really good for salespeople.
Yeah, I've talked about that book several times.
And so I met up with Jia for lunch when I was at my job because we like shared a mentor, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna go do this like 50-state road trip with my wife, and I love that you had some type of like like journey that helped you become kind of like a better version of yourself, because his whole thing was he just wanted to get over the fear of rejection, right? And I was like, I'm gonna go to 50 states and I'm gonna leave my job and all this stuff. And he's like, he just threw an idea out there. He's like, you should work a job in every state. He was like, you can just like apprentice people and learn from them, and like it sounds like fun. You can share your journey. I was like, that sounds fun. Like, I'm gonna do that. And so I honestly did. That sparked it. And it was kind of like, well, worst case scenario, like I get to go to all 50 states with my wife. I get to, talk with people in a lot of different jobs. I was 23 at the time. So I was like, I get to learn and see a lot of different, businesses. And that was totally the case. Like I got to come here and work on scooters. I got to work for the National Park Service in Alaska. Got a lot of really cool things that I like never had.
Did you drive the RV up to Alaska?
We drove a RV up to Alaska.
You did.
We made the mistake of going with my parents and my grandparents, who I love, but we all went in one RV. And that was a whole different thing. It was like at the end of our year of travels, and they were also going to Alaska.
See, that's what I would be vlogging, like that whole experience.
But it's like 24 hours of daylight, and there's 6 of us in a 32-foot RV. And Alyssa and I, of course, like the youngest and the smallest, like we're sleeping on like the dinette table that converts to a bed. We end up leaving early. So it's just... we want to like redo it better, but yeah, we drove the RV to Alaska. The only place we didn't drive the RV was Hawaii.
No.
Yeah. So, just because people ask, I feel like I need to throw that out
What kind
there.
of entrepreneur are you? You couldn't figure that one out? Dang it.
Yeah.
It was
So
Franklin. Was that the?
Yeah, that was the
Franklin,
yeah.
Franklin the RV.
Yeah.
All right, so
he looked kind of sketchy, so yeah.
I mean, so when you're like getting to the end of this thing, were you guys like exhausted and like tired of it? Because I think by like the 30th state, I would have been like, this is kind of cool, but like I'm kind of done.
I think so. For me, going into this was like I was always an idea guy in college, so I was like have these ideas, and they were kind of like, can I say ass on here?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You just did.
They were kind of like half-assed. Like I never actually followed through on a lot of these things. So like one of my big goals, and one of my the guy who officiated our wedding actually called me out on it right before our wedding. He was like, Heath, I love you, man, but you're getting married tomorrow. And he's like, I just want to see you. Like, I think this hourly America thing's cool, but I just want to see you finish something. And I was like, oh, dude, ouch. But also, I appreciate the tough love. So for me, a big goal of this wasn't necessarily like, I want to be a famous documentary filmmaker or I want to like do anything. I just want to finish something that I started. And so for me, the primary goal going into this was actually just to finish. And so there was a burnout point. At one point, we drove 14 straight hours from, I think we were in one of the Midwest states that was decently far away. I always forget which one, but it was like Omaha. No, Nebraska, that's the state. So we were in like Nebraska and we had worked 2 kind of like crappy jobs back to back. We had been dealing with a leak in our roof. We were kind of like running low on money. And Alyssa just came to the back of the rig after a job one day and she was like, I just lost our last 2 days of footage on this hard drive. And I just like pulled up Google Maps on my phone. It's like, we can be home in 14 hours. And we just drove straight home and just like took a week off and like did some repairs, spent time with family. But I mean, we ended up like going along the trip, but there were definitely those moments where you're like, I'm living this like kind of crazy story, which kind of makes for a good story and like retrospectively looking at it. But in the moment I was like this is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were, what number were we?
You were kind of like after the hump, like we knew we were going to finish at that point. You were in like 43
I was gonna say, it's
or
probably
something like
40s,
that. Yeah. It was getting pretty late.
I noticed we were like a half second in the documentary. It was like, done.
It's hard.
We rode a scooter. It's over.
Forklift.
Out.
But in fairness, you were like, I gave like 10 talks.
I've been waiting for this moment.
I did like 10 talks after the event. Like we had like companies reach out and like ask us to come share our story, which I thought was interesting because it was not like an expected thing. Like we spoke to a lot of like Chick-fil-A franchisees and at UPS and like other companies who have lots of hourly employees. And New Scooters for Less was like kind of the climax of the talk as we like plotted our way around the country. And like getting here was like I would like talk at the end of this, like, you know, Colin creates the ultimate customer experience, but like what would it look like to create the ultimate hiring experience? Because it was all these companies who hire lots of people. Because like my hiring experience coming in New Scooters for Less that day was like I reached out on like a Sunday, I came in on like a Monday, and I came in and it was like orange juice and donuts, and like you had got my name embroidered on the shirt, which I still have. And I was like, that was really cool. And it kind of like blew you away. And I was like, in the day of social media, you know, like everyone's, you know, like on their phones, and it's, you know, basically create experiences for people because they'll value them and they'll remember them and they'll be meaningful. And that was kind of like one of the key takeaways. So you got like a lot of good FaceTime in the talk. That's kind of like what I was getting at there.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a cool experience even for us, right? You know, like I remember it, and I mean, it's funny that you even bring up that song because like I was like thinking about today. I'm like I was trying to remember the words to the song.
Oh, I could sing the whole thing.
No, you can't.
No, Heath and I were talking about how like addictive it still is. Like Casey had a talent for writing these songs. It was so.
And so what we're talking about is like Heath. We made Heath record the voicemail. So one of the things that we actually need to bring this back. We really need to bring this back. No, but I mean, like we've kind of defaulted. Like not that the UCE is like dying or anything. Like we still like really focus on creating that customer experience, but you know, like with the voicemail, we've become a little like not as cool. I mean, we still have the retro like Nintendo music when we put you on hold, but like when somebody got the voicemail, it would have a little jingle. And
it's the kind of thing that pisses off the parents, but the kids really love.
Yeah, but so Casey Henshaw would make up these little jingles. She was one of our team members, and so we made Heath record it, right?
Yeah.
And
she just had the cameo.
You're telling us that you know the jingle.
Yeah, I think Allison could sing it.
So
with us
here
too.
it is, ladies and gentlemen, Michael D's And
I don't have Casey's voice, but so this is to the tune of
how to build a snowman.
yeah. Do you want to build a snowman? So it's,
okay.
Do you want to buy a scooter?
Come on, better. Do it better.
And ride all over town. You won't need buses anymore. Come to our store and we'll show you around. And you could buy a Vespa. Or maybe, oh no, so you can buy a buddy. Or maybe not. Vespas are really great too. Do you want to buy a scooter? I think you want to buy a scooter. And then he says, leave a message. Okay, bye. He's got it. This is it.
Do you want to buy a scooter and ride around all over town? You won't need buses anymore. Come to our store and we'll show you around. And you could get a buddy, or maybe not. Vespas are really great too. Do you want to buy a scooter? I think you want to buy a scooter.
Leave a message. That was me. Leave a message.
I forgot that I was in.
Okay.
I just literally searched on Facebook. Do you want to buy a scooter?
Actually, thanks for making me sing it.
And she's going to kill us for that.
That's great. I mean, we need to bring that back. We need to do that way more often because that was so much fun. But that's what we were talking
Should
about.
hire
Just
Casey
bring
as an independent consultant.
She's available for hire.
So, all right. So you guys finished the documentary and you like what? So what happened after that? What was the next thing? Like what led to all this other stuff?
So we premiered the documentary at a conference called World Domination Summit by Chris Gelbo. He hosts it. It's basically kind of like a conference for creative entrepreneurs. So we did it there and we did a couple screenings. But after that was like our main focus was basically doing this freelance videography business. And we were kind of like video for hire. And we were doing that for a couple of years, kind of like our main focus. And then the podcast started, and that was going really well. And we started building we started doing more and more work in the RVing and camping space because we were still enjoying traveling by RV, and we kind of had this interesting story. And we realized, hey, this is like a fun industry to be in. So like, let's try to do more things in this space. And so our blog started doing really well, and the podcast started picking up traction in the Facebook group and things like that. And so
were you creating a blog and creating a podcast like because you were enjoying the RV experience, or you're like, let's figure out a way to monetize and actually create a living here?
So we've been blogging since 2011. Like we always, like one of the big things that we wanted to do before we ever started getting on the road was like use this as a time to like kind of hone those skills in writing and things like that. And so video kind of came later, but we both, outside of like the Hourly America blog thing, had like our own personal like Heath Padgett and AlyssaPadgett.com that we were kind of like documenting our journey and trying to figure out like what our thing was going to be. And so when I started realizing that I was kind of geeking out about RVing and it was fun and I enjoyed talking about it and like sharing stories, then I was like, I think I'm going to make my blog about RVing. And Alyssa was like, that's fine. I don't want to do that. I was like, okay. So I think I'm going to do that. And there wasn't like a lot. Now there's a whole lot of people that create content who live in vans and RVs, but there was like a couple then. There wasn't very many people doing it. So it was pretty early and we had like this different take on how we were doing things. And so it became pretty easy to like reach out and like start collaborating with companies and stuff. And that became like its own thing. And then in 2016, after I started the podcast, I also co-founded Campground Booking. So that was like the next big project that came after the documentary. And so that's now grown. We have like a team of 5 now. And so we like power a good bit. Like last year we did 1.6 million in bookings through the platform. And basically it's a lot of campgrounds have like mom and pop shops. They use like pen and paper. Like whenever we were traveling around, you have to call in to make a reservation. So basically like, why do we have to do this? And so there's like 13,000 private campgrounds in North America. So we're like, let's just create a booking site so that, it's been a lot more than that. So they have we have a property management system. It powers their whole, like all their employees use it. Like they all get their logins, they check people in. It's like a whole thing. And then but basically you can easily book at all these parks now that are using our software. So that's been like a big focus from 2016 on that we've been doing. But now it's like all of our work is really in the same vertical space, like you're in scooters industry kind of thing, and now business media. So, but a lot of our stuff is in like the RVing and camping space.
Which is really great because, finding more opportunities, it's funny because my buddy Alex Willis says this. He's like, finding opportunities in your current opportunities.
Yeah.
I like
that.
Yeah, it's like, that's exactly what you've done. You're like in this space and you're like able to like recognize new opportunities and go, I'm super interested with the campground booking. create it? Like, you have
I have
that
a-
skill set? Like, what? I mean, when you like come up with that idea,
Yeah.
what were your steps? And like, all right, now like let's make this booking site. Let's build a team around this.
So
Is
I
the
had-
team in the RV with you? What's all going on?
both the guys. Yeah, both
Is
the
this
guys.
like a remote office and a remote home? Are you playing the system? What's happening?
Yeah, so I met another guy who wanted to like work on this, but he didn't have the technical chops. He was a product designer, and so I started it with him. And then we realized like, hey, we kind of have a couple different options for how we were going to fund it. Like there was one company in the RV space that was like, hey, we'll give you like lots of resources, and like, but we'll give you only 10%, but we'll fund it. And we're like, we almost went down that path, and we ended up not doing that. And then I posted in our Facebook group, it's like, hey, does anybody have really great any great developers out here? Because I hadn't really tried to find somebody who I could build this with. Because the other path was like raise seed round of like 50,000 and just like try to do a gun for hire developer. And I met with some investors and ended up not going that path because they want to see something further on. And I ended up finding a guy from our Facebook group after like a couple of calls, and he was like, I can build this. And like we're getting out on the road in RV, so I'm like interested in doing stuff in the space. And he was previously at MapQuest and had like done some big integrations with like Priceline and stuff. And so we just started working on it. It was kind of like a risk, but there ended up being 3 of us that started it. We ended up buying out our other co-founder earlier this year, the designer. And so now it's like me, the business marketing side. I own half the company, and then my co-founder Paul's our CTO, and he's like built the whole app. So now we've got like a trip planner that's live on like some big travel website, so like plans people's routes and stuff. And then we've got like a white label product that's like campground listings that power like campground association campgrounds websites. And then we've got like the booking engine type thing that essentially like powers campgrounds and makes it easy for people to reserve. So
That's cool, man.
yeah, it's fun. I mean, yeah. And then this year we're gonna buy a campground. So
Yeah?
Yeah.
So just keep adding on, man. That's
love
what
it,
I
yeah.
do. Hey, you see this? We got a lot in common. Like let's just start businesses. Let's buy more stuff.
He's playing Monopoly.
Yeah, playing Monopoly.
I crush a Monopoly.
Yeah. So do I.
I used to whoop my grandma.
All right, so why a campground?
What is it?
Why own a campground?
So
Just something
when
you
we
wanna
host
do?
there, like we love hospitality, and I think the idea of doing something in person is really, that was actually one of my big takeaways from Hourly America. Wasn't necessarily like, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It was that I really value like in-person experiences. Like I love the idea of building a big company, but also like being around people really gives me a lot of energy, even though we do all of our work remotely. And I'm like, when we host our conference, we have all these people here. We're creating this experience for people, and I love it. And it's like our favorite week of the year. And basically realizing like there's a lot of opportunity in the campground space because it's very tired. You know, like a lot of parks are super outdated and like they have old systems and old infrastructure. And so we realized from our event, like we have like a pop-up co-working space during our conference. We had like bringing good internet. And so essentially like with a campground, we want to go buy one that we feel like hasn't been really optimized and like turn a cool co-working space on site, have like a coffee shop, basically make it like a really modern hospitality experience. But for people who are in RVs or maybe want to stay in like a cool glamping site or something like that, like an renovated Airstream. And so like that's kind of the whole vision behind it, is to make it like a really cool hospitality experience for people. And we don't really feel like that there's enough of that out there in the camping space.
It's cool, man.
Yeah, we're
Dang.
excited.
So do you have to onboard these campgrounds, or do they do their own internals and you're just getting the reservations for them?
So we do like a fully concierge onboarding process for the parks. So basically we, Scarlett on our team is our head of customer support. So basically like that's another thing is like, it's really a challenge to like switch systems. So we have to like walk them through each part of this process to like get all of their campsites, like 100, like some parks have like several hundred sites. So we have to know like what are the dimensions of the site because the RV needs to fit there. And like, it's a whole process to get them onboarded. Yeah.
Okay, this is like primarily like National Park Service.
We have one campground actually that we just recently signed up. There's a part of that is a vendor to the National Park Service, but these are all private campgrounds that we currently have. To get into the contracts with like the big national parks, you kind of have to like be a player in the space for a while and show like a proven track record to go after government contracts. So that would be like the end goal is to get into that. It'd be amazing to get in the government contract space, but right now it's all private campgrounds.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now you have a kid. You guys, you and Alyssa were like,
Yeah.
let's fill the RV with babies.
Well, we actually got out of the RV for a year, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it took a little break.
Yeah.
Got out of the RV.
Well, we gave ourselves like 5 years from when we got married. We're like, I think we'll give ourselves 5 years to like have adventures and do whatever, and then we'll think about kids. And we ended up having her like right before the 5-year anniversary mark, like 2 days.
Yeah.
And basically we took a year off of like travel, and well, I say we took a year off of travel. We took a year off of like full time. We still like did some other stuff, but yeah. So this year was mostly focused on like the software company and like bringing a baby into the world, being around family and stuff like that. Yeah.
It's really cool, man.
Yeah.
Do you see like having kids like homeschool life, like traveling the U.S.? Have you guys like talked about that at all, or you think you're gonna like go back to Texas, settle down for a little while? Like,
we're kind of putting that on future Heath and Alyssa to like make that decision, but Alyssa doesn't. She at this point she doesn't want to homeschool because we're like, we both love our work, and it's maybe sounds selfish, but it's like we want to have like careers and do what we enjoy. So that could totally change, but I think the ideal scenario is like, if we really love the brand and the experience that we can create at one campground, the big dream is to like have a brand of campgrounds like across the country potentially. And so maybe like we could kind of see us bouncing around different places or having a base somewhere. Like, I don't know. There's a lot that can change in 4 years. At one point, we did a year of 50 states of travel. I'm not even going to try to plan like what 4 years looks like from now. We're open to lots of different options. You know, like if we need to teach her how to color and stuff, not go to kindergarten, like I don't think that's a big deal. Like, we'll figure it out.
It's cool.
Yeah.
What's the hardest part of RV life now that you've done this so long?
The hardest part was not having a dedicated desk in the RV. For me, like that's may seem trite for a lot of people, but I struggled with not having like a good desk space. And so the RV that we're actually in, Winnebago, the RV company has like been a main sponsor of our event for 4 years now. And 2 years ago, we created a Winnebago lab on site at the event. We brought their product managers on site, and we were like, hey, we probably have the biggest gathering of people who are like working on the road in an RV or running a business. Like, let's interview them and see what they would want. And everyone's like, well, we want more desk space. So Winnebago, like for the first time, took out a bunk and like made a 6 foot long dual workspace in an RV. And they were like, we want you guys to use it for a year. So we're like, okay. Because it kind of like part
awesome.
of it came from like some of the feedback from our conference. So as we were doing like a campground startup tour this year, as we like go look at properties that we want to buy, and we're traveling around in this 40-foot RV that, you know, has like this really cool workspace in it now. So that was a big pain point, and now it's not. So, yeah.
Dude, that's crazy.
How do you split the driving? Are you like full-time driver? Do you split it equal? Or
so we did New Zealand, Italy, and Canada the past couple of years. We did a lot more international trips and like smaller motorhomes, which Alyssa would actually drive. Now that we're in a 40-foot, I'm the full-time driver.
Okay.
So, yeah. But we're going to go much slower this year. Like we're spending a month in like Florida this next month. So we'll be here, and then we're going to be in a month. We're hosting our conference in northern Alabama, so we'll be there for a month. So we aren't going to like be moving super, super fast. But I would say that was like the other pain point that a lot of people have, is that like you have this desire to like travel, but it also like conflicts with this whole notion of like wanting to build a business. And so it's like finding that balance between like, I'm an entrepreneur, I want to build something, but also like I love hiking. I love spending time outside with my wife and now our daughter. And so it's like figuring out like what's right for us. And where's that right tension point? And so it's a good problem to have, but I would say that that's like one thing that we've like kind of went back and forth on, is like, I love freedom, but I also love the idea of like creating value in my career. So it's like, yeah, but I think that's a healthy tension.
Yeah.
do you have to deal with a lot of breakdowns? But for the RV, I mean, I don't know about you and Alyssa.
Yeah. With Franklin, yes. Because it was a 20-year-old RV. This is a 2020. So no.
Okay, but like tire
This is
blowouts
like
or
a
anything?
nice one.
Yeah, this is like
Okay,
lux.
like
we were doing
luxury.
we were doing an Instagram live this past week, and we were at the RV show in Tampa, and we were like showing it around. And after we showed our second, it's got 2 bathrooms, like full baths with 2 showers. And I was like, after we showed that in the Sleep Number bed, I was like, I feel like I just need to stop here in this video and just say that in our first RV, we had to take our popcorn bucket, put it on the floor to catch the water that was dripping endlessly from our roof, because we have not always lived in a place this nice. So anyway,
Let me tell you my first RV experience.
yeah.
We were probably in 20-year-old Franklin as well, and we went up to Nashville for the Vanderbilt game as a team. We were like,
Right.
you know,
So
this will be fun.
This had to be November of 15 then, because it had to be
Was
after.
it after?
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever. It was a bad idea.
Was it 15, Allie, or was it 14?
14,
So it had to be a month
before.
before.
It had to be like right before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So, I mean, we go up to Nashville as a team. We're like, yo, what would be better than putting the entire team into an RV together to drive up to Tennessee to watch the Vanderbilt game? I mean, that'd be great. I think we had a break. The one time we had a breakdown coming back, didn't we?
Yeah, we had
a flat tire or something?
right? Yeah,
flat tire. I mean, we were cramped.
Yeah.
It was. I remember freezing to death. That's all I remember was freezing to death. Like,
it didn't have a heater.
If it did, we didn't run it that night.
Yeah, we didn't know how to use the heater in Franklin for like 3 months, and then we found out there's just like you flip a thing on the furnace. We're like, oh, that's how you use the heater.
I think one of the hardest things too is the driver doesn't really feel all the vibrations going on in the back of the RV. It feels like you're just driving a normal car, but everybody in the back feels every move that you make.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people that didn't like specific people driving, I found out.
Me driving?
Maybe.
That's because I was driving the night shift. It was like 3:00 in the morning, and I'm like driving, and
Haley Blanco was your co-pilot.
Haley was the co-pilot. We had a rule that a co-pilot had to stay up and like help keep the driver awake by talking to him. So I'm like driving. Haley's talking to me. We probably had deeper conversations than we should have as like employee, like talking about life. I'm like, oh man, but it was a good time.
I remember I was specifically asked if I would drive more.
Yeah. Well, I would have let you at any moment. I remember freezing to death trying to sleep in the Walmart parking lot, and I don't even know if you're allowed to do that.
You can stay in Walmarts. We rarely, if ever, do, but yeah.
Well, we did. Yeah. We wanted to make sure that we got the full roughing it RV experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I hate staying in Walmarts. It's not fun.
It's bright. The parking.
Well, now you don't have to because you can go to campgroundbooking.com. You guys can reserve your spot. Go to campgroundbooking.com. So did you also use this as an opportunity to pay off debt?
Yeah.
Do I remember this?
So our first year that we were traveling for Hourly America was basically like we had some savings, and it was like, okay, well, we're going to use this, but we like to not use all of it. And so part of it was like trying to figure out how we could subsidize and not run out of money. So I sent a cold email to a job board before we started Snag a Job or whatever, and they ended up like giving us like $1,000 a month to like do some videos, and they sent us video equipment. We're like, hey, do you want to like shoot and like, document the trip? And then along the way, we started picking up some freelance blogs and things. So we kind of subsidized that first year, but we paid nothing into the debt. It was just like kind of try to get to almost break even, which we didn't. And then the second year, we're like, okay, we're going to be stationary, build this up, and kind of be like responsible adults. And so the second year, we paid off $14,000 of debt. And then we bought a new RV, didn't pay off as much that next year. It took like a couple years, but I paid off over $30,000 of debt those first like few years that we were still traveling. So it was kind of one of those things too, because if there was there was a couple articles that went out that shared our story that first year on like big networks or whatever. And so I think if somebody were looking at, hey, there's these two 20-somethings go traveling around the country, I've always felt good about sharing like, hey, we're still being like responsible adults, but we're just happen to be doing our work thing as we travel around the country, paid off debt, all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Were you guys on Ramsey's show?
No.
For some reason I thought
we didn't apply for that.
Okay. For some reason I thought you had or something, but so what's the biggest opportunity that has come from all of this? Where you were like, whoa, I can't believe that happened. This is crazy. Did you have any of those moments?
I will say I think I've had a couple of those moments. Like, so one that was really fun is that being on the road has created all these amazing serendipitous relationships. I would say this is one. It's fun. Like we're not from Gainesville, but we have friends here now. It's like, but this past weekend we just flew back from Nashville. One of the low points in our trip during Hourly America was our fridge went out because we parked on a hill, and apparently you're not supposed to park a propane fridge on like an uneven surface, and the coils on the back of our fridge like blew up. And so it was like $2,000 to replace. So for like a month we ended up stuffing like ice into our freezer because we didn't have enough money to replace the fridge. But anyway, like right after that happened, we were 5 hours from Nashville. We were currently in St. Louis, and Chris Gilbo, who we had met at the conference in Portland, had a book coming out in Nashville, and we're like, hey, maybe we can just go see some familiar faces at this book signing and just like kind of have a silver lining to this day. And we went back and forth on whether we should do it because it was like out of the way. And we ended up going, and we met three people who become some of our best friends. And one of the couples specifically are now our daughter's godparents from that one kind of serendipitous event. And they were planning to go do their year of like travel. and they ended up hitting the road and like documented their journey on YouTube to go to, and they were just going to do like a year of travel, kind of like us. And then it expanded to 2 years, 3 years, now 4 years. And they went to 100 countries. And then in their 100th country, they built a big YouTube following. They hit 1 million subscribers. And we hosted their event 2 days ago. I got to be the MC, and Alyssa and I kind of helped do some of the planning. And then like it was 800 people came to this event in Nashville to watch their documentary premiere. And like 5 or 6 years ago, we got to meet them and share like, hey, we're doing this documentary. And Hourly America was in their film to just like kind of reference like how we played a small role. So I don't know if that was the first thing that came to mind because it was 2 days ago. And that was like a really cool experience that we got to be a part of. That was like, hey, I think in general, like if we hadn't said yes to going to do this trip, like our lives would have taken a totally different path. So when I think about all the
like
people,
pinpoint it to that moment.
Yeah, I can pinpoint it to that moment, but all the things that have spiderwebbed out from that have been just like kind of surreal, because there's like the big life decision of like, hey, I'm going to choose to like leave my job and go on this 50-state road trip. But then there's also like the smaller ones like, hey, I'm going to go to this book signing and be around lots of really cool people and end up meeting people who become like really, really, really good friends.
That's so cool.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of those.
The ripple effects, man.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
Wild.
it's so cool. Now, like, so with your conference, I mean, you've done other speaking stuff, right? Like I see photos of you all the time on stage.
Yeah, they're just stock. I just go to empty stadiums.
Like on stage in front of a bunch of people.
I don't even know why I do that.
Like,
yeah.
Actually, I see pictures of you in front of a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And I mean, so, a lot of people just have a fear of public speaking. I mean, was that like a thing for you?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like I'm just selfish and feed off the attention, just an ego. No, I did the MC this weekend for my friends, and there was 800 people there. I've never spoken in front of that many people, but I wasn't super nervous. And I think what helped is right after Hourly America, I didn't do much public speaking in college, maybe a little bit, but after Hourly America, we had a story go out on CBS, and somebody invited us to speak at this HR conference and share. And that's where I talked about New Scooters for Less and shared that. And that was kind of fun to like go in these business settings as like a 24-year-old and teach people who had been like way long. I was like, I feel like I have nothing to share here, but I'm glad that you're listening. And people really got value from hearing like the job seeker perspective, I guess, because that was what they wanted to hear. Not like I wasn't coming in to tell them how to do their job better, but I learned a lot during that process. And then I went on this 30-city book tour with Ja, who wrote Rejection Proof. And so we were together for months and months, and he's a really, really good professional speaker. And so I feel like I learned a lot from him because I was like lining up all of his talks. Like I was helping him negotiate his speaking. And I just learned a lot about like rejection and all these other things and like how to hone a talk. Like I sat and listened to his talk every day. Like before like he would go out, he would like rehearse with me in hotels or whatever.
He's not afraid of no anymore.
He's not, no.
He's just going to ask.
So I think one thing that's been super helpful for me from a public speaking perspective, is everyone has like their tricks that help. Like, there's the cliche of like imagining people in their underwear. But for me, it's like if I start getting really, really nervous or in my head before I go up or when I'm talking, I just think about like, oh, you're being selfish because you're not here for you, you're here for them. And like that event this weekend, I was there for my friends, Kara and Nate. And I was also there for like the 800 people that came from all over the world to like see their thing. And so like for me, that's like the one thing that clicks in my head. And I don't mean for it to like sound altruistic or anything like that, but it's just like, it literally just helps me not be nervous because it's like, it's not about me. It's about like having a good experience with this person who's listening to me. You know what I mean? And like me, that's the thing that clicks.
That's good. It's weird because I've started speaking a lot more and I love it, but I always get like, and I don't even know if it's nerves or if it's excitement or what, but it's just that feeling like butterflies, like right
those
before,
are good.
Right before I do it, right before,
I still get those.
Yeah, and when I get on stage, and I start, talking or answering questions or whatever, it's like I'm fine, like I'm in a zone and I love it. It's like a complete adrenaline rush. So I can kind of see, what you mean, and but I'm just always interested in people's perspective on it, especially if you haven't been doing it very long, because I haven't been doing it too long, you know? In fact, most of the time it's funny, I always tell them, I'm like, my best paying speaking gig is the ones that I do for free at the University of Florida because I get in front of all these students and I talk about New Scooters for Less, and and
there you go.
They're like they come and buy scooters later, which is great. So
I think the other thing, not to like go too deep in the rabbit hole on speaking, but the other thing I learned from Ja that I think helped, because a lot of people are so scared of public speaking, was to treat your talk like a product. Like your version 1 of any type of new product is going to not be the best. So like if you go into it expecting like it to be very, very raw and know that it needs to be molded over like 15 or 20 different talks, then it feels less like it's about you being bad and more just about like, oh, that joke didn't land here. I need to like come up with a better timing or something. You know what I mean? Like I think that was helpful for me too.
Okay, so do you like really prepare, or do you like step on stage and speak?
We MC our own conference. Like I don't do a talk. I just MC. For those, I have like outline notes.
Yeah.
When I did my talk at these companies, I had like actually hired someone who's a professional sketch noter, and like they did like a map drawings
Slides.
across. Yeah, so that one's like rehearsed to like I knew what I was gonna say. I scripted the entire talk. But for like an MCing type thing, like this weekend, I knew like the story I wanted to tell to introduce my friends, but that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can diffuse a lot of the pressure on stepping up to a stage of 800 people, and you diffuse it by making it about them, right?
That's what helps me.
So
yeah. And again, I'm not trying to. It sounds like very like, oh, he's such a good. That's not what, like. It's just it helps me. Yeah.
So you've got a YouTube channel, and you build a little bit of celebrity on it over the holidays.
Hey, will you follow me on YouTube?
Sure.
Hold on, where sorry.
Just cut me off like that.
cut him off and like go to YouTube right now. Hold on, so
Unreal.
Do I follow you on YouTube? What's your YouTube?
It's just Heath and Alyssa.
I feel like I should. Okay, sorry.
Colin Austin wicking bed.
What?
I don't know. That's just what YouTube pre-populated to. I don't know.
Uh-oh.
I don't know what that.
Wait, what's the name of your YouTube?
It's just my name, Colin Austin, 2 L's.
You guys,
Anyway, we'll come back to this.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Oh, well, good.
Now he's got a mouthful. It's like when the waiter walks up. How's your food? Yeah.
So over the holidays, I saw a little back and forth with Alyssa and somebody that was maybe not so satisfied with the lack of content you've been putting out since you had a kid. So
yeah, somebody trolled Alyssa on Christmas Eve at like 8 p.m. You're like, you know, I love following YouTubers who are professional and put out content every week. Tagged our friends who I mentioned, Karen Nate, and they were just like, unlike Alyssa and Heath or whatever.
Yeah, I saw that. Did you see my response?
I probably looked at it in the moment. I don't remember it off the top of my
Oh,
head.
you got my response?
right there, I pulled it up.
Okay, this is my response. I said, ha ha ha, is this for real? Looks like that travel advisor needs to focus on making some real content for their 38 followers.
Shots fired.
I don't think they
38 followers and like...
Yeah. I don't think anybody responded. Or
Dude,
they didn't respond, I mean.
Are you serious? Like, when I saw that, I was like, is this for real? Like,
Yeah.
you guys stop trolling
So what's that
people
like?
on Christmas Eve. Yeah, well, yeah.
What's it like being... So...
I mean, because you guys, you're really starting, at least like in this niche, you're building a brand for yourselves, and you're in a spotlight of sorts. Like, I mean, when you get something like that, what do you... You're influencers in your space, so like, what do? Do you just ignore it? Do you like, because a lot of people, especially in today's day and age, like they will not create content, they will not post on social media for the fear of that.
Yeah.
And that person has 38 followers, my guy. Like, forget them, but like, but people fear that.
Yeah, I think so. We kind of got it in a rush that first year, actually, right before we came here in the fall or the winter of 2014, because we went on like Fox and Friends, and CNN found us on Twitter randomly. Like I followed someone on CNN and they found our story and they were like, hey, we want to do a story. I was like, okay. And then it kind of like, when media happens, a lot of media will like ducktail and they'll like, oh, I want to do a story. So we did maybe 4 or 5 stories within like a week, and they got a lot of traffic, front page of Yahoo and stuff like that. And then anytime any like media like that happens, people are so binary and like the things they say. And if you ever have like an article go out about you, like you probably should never read the comments, but like it was the first time that ever really happened for us. And so I read a lot of them. We're like, oh man, this sucks. And then there was this guy who had traveled to all 50 states before us. He sent us a cease and desist letter that week. He called the CEO of Snagajob and said, hey, you need to like cut ties with this guy. Just because he had done it before and like 6 years earlier, and like we were getting way more traction and maybe messing up his SEO. But it was crazy in the moment.
Dude,
it was just
nuts.
like, it was, and literally he created fake accounts, and his family members created fake accounts and trolled us across all platforms. And it was one of those things where it was just like, okay, well, I went to a conference called Catalyst when I was in college, and it was in Georgia. And the speaker said something that stuck with me. She was like, if you're not ready for it, nothing will kill you faster than a spotlight. And I was like, oh, that was actually really good advice, because it's like, those things can be very hurtful if you're not ready for them. And luckily those were like very minuscule compared to like cyberbullying and other types of things that can happen. But it was the first time we had ever experienced it. So it was like kind of figuring out how to navigate that. And I feel like going through that period of time was helpful now, because you kind of like, you're not completely ever desensitized, and I don't want to say that I am, but you kind of get context to know that the louder you are, a lot of times the more you'll attract a bigger audience, the greater chances there'll be negative people that come from that. So I think it's just par for the course. I don't think it affects me as much now. Now, like when my daughter's a little bit bigger, and like if she comes in the equation and then some of those things happen, I don't know how I'll act.
Right.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I think for me personally, like it hasn't been a big deal. But I think that still holds me back from certain things every now and then. So I think it's a constant like barometer of trying to like figure out how to deal with it. But like when that thing came in, I laughed. Like I didn't care. Like I thought it was funny, just because like in the big scheme of things, it's like I have a software company. Like I have a conference I'm running. Like I'm doing so much stuff, and YouTube is like a fun side hustle when we can get the time to do it.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like I don't really care.
Yeah, they don't have the full context of
Totally
your life. And
Alyssa responded, "So sorry that spending Christmas with my family is so irritating to you." And I thought that was a perfect to the point clap back and move on. But
exactly.
Well on her. But that got a good laugh over the holidays. I saw that and I was like, "Wow, are you really that important?" I don't mean you, but like the person that comments that, like the holidays, you just had to come on.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It is what it is,
So, out of all the jobs that you did with Hourly America, what was your favorite?
Besides this one.
The most like
I want to know which was the favorite.
I want you to say it.
It's kind of like when people ask you like what state is the favorite. Like there's a lot of things I liked about a lot of different places, but I think the craziest like kind of coolest experience was probably getting to ride a helicopter up to base camp for Mount Denali.
Oh wow.
So like we were in Alaska for this 50th job, and I posted on Facebook. I was like, hey, I'm procrastinating getting my last job in Alaska. Do you have any ideas for things I should do? And somebody commented on there, was like, hey, my friend of a friend is the chief of climbing for Denali National Park. Like that's his job title, the chief of climbing. And basically when he heard about it, he was like, Heath has to do his last job here. We have a mission going out tomorrow to base camp to do like a rescue from somebody who has high altitude sickness. So we're going to put you on the helicopter and fly you and Alyssa up there, and you get to stay the night at base camp on a glacier with the park rangers, and come back the next day. We'll pick you up in an airplane and fly you off. And I was like, okay, that sounds amazing. So that was definitely like the most memorable one. And we had never really done tent camping before. I mean, we in an RV, it's not the same as tent camping. And so I didn't realize that people sleep on pads when they are in a tent. And so we actually slept in the tent in a sleeping bag that was like rated for cold temp, but we had no pad. So it was literally sleeping on ice. So we like woke up wet. We're like, tent camping sucks. Like, why would people do this? And then the next morning I like go in the tent while the guy's making coffee. He's like, oh yeah, we had some extra pads over here. You should have grabbed them.
Like, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So,
appreciate that.
Yeah. I got fired from one job. I don't know if I told you that, but
I don't think so.
yeah.
What was the job?
It was at a cafe in like West Virginia. But basically, the manager didn't know I was coming in that day, even though I talked to the owners, and she was just like not having it. She was just like, you need to go. After like an hour of being there, I was just like in the back washing dishes. And so I was like, whatever, this counts. We're gone.
So you didn't do another job?
Nope.
That was
You counted it. You were there for an hour. You got fired.
I'm
It
out.
was legit.
Yeah. That's a job experience, It happens to some people.
Dang.
That's great.
So out of all this, we got to wrap up in a minute, but like out of all of this, experience over all of these years, and as much as that, like, what's the one piece of advice that you would offer to, I'd say, new entrepreneurs? Because you guys were fresh coming into this, brand new, like creating opportunities. Like, what's one piece of advice you would offer our audience?
So as an entrepreneur, like whenever I was in college, I was trying to start a lot of random businesses in industries I knew nothing about. And so I would come up with an idea for like a t-shirt company or something like that. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but I don't actually know much about apparel. I'm not a designer. So it's like, I don't really have a lot to offer there. And so by actually taking a step back and deciding to go travel the country in an RV, I found like, hey, I love living on the road. I like going to national parks and hiking and spending time outside. It's really fun. And so being able to solve pain points in an industry that I really like has allowed me to, try a lot of different things, whether it's like working with Winnebago when they launch a 4x4 RV and working on a campaign for that, or hosting our conference, or coming up with a new software solution. It's like, first I found an industry that I really enjoyed, and I was like, I could work in this space forever. It's fun. People get to go outside and like have amazing memories, versus just arbitrarily trying to come up with business ideas and not having any context. Because I feel like it's allowed us to kind of like go through some of those deeper like troughs of sorrow as an entrepreneur, because, at the worst case scenario, it's like I'm doing something in a space that I really enjoy, versus just trying to say like, there's an opportunity in this space, like let's go solve it. I know some people are just maybe really good entrepreneurs, so they can do that. But for us, that's what's been really cool, is like finding a area and industry that we really enjoy being in.
So if someone's listening to this when it releases and they're like, man, I'm really thinking about now quitting my job and driving an RV across the country, what would you tell them to maybe push them over that edge, motivate them to do it? And what's like the biggest tip that you would tell them, this is what you need to know?
Oh gosh. I feel like my first couple of years, I would probably say like, just go for it. But now it's like, maybe it's because maybe have a kid now. I'm like being more conservative in my rational, but
It'll do that, won't it?
We'll do that.
I would just say in our situation, the worst case scenario, like a lot of people are afraid of like leaving a job. Like we really didn't have a hardcore failure like opportunity, because the worst case scenario was we go travel for a year, and we're very fortunate enough to have friends and family that like worst case scenario was we run out of money. I spent a couple months at my parents' house. I could have called Colin for a job. He probably would have hired me. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like
That's true.
That's like worst case scenario is like we go get a job. Not everyone has that base to fall back on. So like some people, maybe that's really bad advice because you don't have a network of people, and we're just fortunate that was our reality. And so there wasn't a real risk at that point. It was like, we have so much to gain by getting this really cool experience. And now like that's part of our story, and it's different. Were your
parents, family, was everybody like super supportive, or were they like, are you freaking crazy?
Yeah.
No, you're not doing that.
Well, I had like my mom's goal, like my parents didn't go to college. So like their whole goal was like get all the kids to college. And like I went to college, I got a good job. And so my mom was like, stamp success. And then I called like 9 months into my job. I was like, hey, I'm going to move into an RV and do a road trip and leave this job. And I've left a couple jobs before then. And so she was just like not super happy. Neither was Alyssa's mom. But then, and our dads were a little bit more okay with it, but also like, hey, how are you going to fund this thing? How are you going to do that? So, I think once we found a sponsor, once we started like actually going and doing this thing, and there's also weird validation with like media. When they saw us on like Fox and Friends, they're like, oh yeah, that's cool.
Our kids are famous. They did it.
It was
I'm
just
so
like,
proud.
Yeah, that was like a weird turning point for those conversations. But
we knew they could do it.
Yeah. So, but I would say also that year that was really cool is like my mom ended up like going back to school and like getting her degree. And when I talked to her, she was like, yeah, like you're always talking about like, go out and so I don't know if like our story like actually impacted her to like go be bold and like do something, but if it did, that was cool. So yeah,
that's right.
I need to stop saying yeah.
Yeah.
As a podcast host, like editing my episodes, I've realized like if somebody says or so, or like everyone has their thing that they're bad at, and like some people are incredibly annoying, like and then they draw them into the other thing. But the worst is a combo of like a trio. Yeah, so
I don't even focus on it, man.
I don't either.
He just focuses on mine. He slacks me all this like feed. You're breathing too heavy. You say this too much.
I do that. Like,
I do that to Alyssa when we record. I'm like, quit touching the table.
Yeah,
this is a professional operation.
Do you do a lot of editing in yours?
I did the first year, and then I haven't since.
Yeah, you're like,
let it go raw.
It took me too long. I'm like stopping. I'm on Instagram. I'm like, this is not for me.
Yeah, no,
So-
just let it ride.
Yeah.
We left all his heavy breathing in those episodes. It's still there.
Yeah. Oh, I have an editor. I just.
I love you, man. I love this guy.
I'm like having a bad day at work. A Wednesday morning Slack message. Oh, what's Colin got to say? Hey, I just listened to your podcast and you're breathing too heavy. You might want to shut up.
I didn't say it exactly.
You sound like
that.
an overweight mastiff.
I said
On a
something
hot summer
along the
day.
lines of nobody else is gonna tell you, and I will. So like, here it is. But I
it's like when I had the-
I'm not perfect by any means. I don't watch all the episodes back. Obviously, I'm here. I don't need to. But every once in a while, there's a couple where I'm like, oh, like let me recheck that one out, or I didn't. you know, it's interesting because I like to go back and soak in more. I'm like, the topic was super interesting to me, or, you know, whatever it was, and I really want to soak it in. And that's when I noticed those things. But anyway, if I were going to like leave all this, get my Winnebago with the desk and start traveling, like he said, right? Like, what's been like the favorite trip? Like, where should I absolutely 100% go in my RV? Do not miss it. You'd be a fool to pass it. Like, what's that spot?
I think if you're semi-adventurous, the Pacific Coast Highway and you have a smaller RV out in California is an amazing road trip that you can do in like a week or two. But if you're really adventurous and you have like a summer, then the Alaskan Highway, even though ours wasn't the ideal thing, like we saw so many bears, so many moose, like that is the epic adventure that you think of like when you're in an RV. It's not in a Walmart parking lot with your whole staff like being cold, but it is that would be like an epic adventure that I would encourage people to do.
Cool.
That's awesome.
We'll have to do that one as a team one day.
That'll be
we'll all go up the Alaskan Highway.
maybe we can put that one before we go to Italy and get that bottle of wine. That'll be one of our celebrations.
We have this thing we said, like when we've made it, we're not sure when that is. But when we know, we feel like, okay, we've made it. Mike and I are going back to Italy because we went to Florence a couple years ago.
Nice.
And it was for a Vespa trip. We got to tour the Vespa factory, which was one of the most incredible things that I've gotten the opportunity to do, especially as somebody who's in this business, to see like where these things are manufactured and actually watch them being made was like one of the coolest things ever. There's a whole vlog on nsfrl.tv if you want to check it out. But when we were there, we went to just a wine place,
right?
And like the seller had all these bottles of wine. I like picked up this bottle and it was $350, and I'm like, I'm gonna come back. I'm not gonna drink this right now.
Back for it.
But I'm gonna come back one day.
There you go.
And I'm gonna drink this bottle of wine. So
I've made it.
It's on the list.
I like it.
Yeah, probably got another 20 years or so, but
we'll see.
You know, hey, 37, 49, 57. That won't be too bad. 57.
There you go.
So, well, man, thanks for coming on. I'm sorry that Alyssa couldn't be here.
And baby's sleeping.
Baby's sleeping in the RV.
When I left, Alyssa had like a popped open bottle of champagne, so she's probably having a good evening, nice evening.
All that like quiet time.
So she's like, yeah, you just go. She's gonna enjoy
She's probably enjoying some chocolate, some champagne.
Good for her.
Well, much love to Alyssa and to the baby. Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
How old's the baby now?
8 months.
8 months, man.
She's sweet.
You're coming up on my favorite time, though. My favorite age was like, I mean, they're all great, but like that 1 to 1.5. It's like they can like communicate with you, but they can't talk.
Yeah.
When they talk, it's all over. They can't
They're like, no.
Yeah, you can't get them to shut up once they start talking.
Yeah.
But like when they can't, they'll hold. They can walk. And they can they'll hold your finger with their hand, their hand's just big enough to hold your finger, and they'll walk and they can communicate, and you know exactly what it is they want, but they're not talking. It's like, I don't know, something about that
I'm
time. So
yeah,
that's coming up. And,
Yeah.
And when they say don't blink, they mean it. My kids have grown up so quick, so cherish that time, man. And so where can our audience, it's mainly Gainesville based, and it's expanding every day. I love it. But where can our audience connect with you, follow your journey, social media, website?
Maybe check out Hourly America.
Yeah.
If you want to check out Hourly America, it's on YouTube. But heathandalyssa.com is like kind of a catch-all for everything. So we have all of our stuff on there.
And then you can connect from there.
Yeah.
Man, thanks so much. And if you ever need to get out of the RV, you want to move to Gainesville, Florida, we got Andy Mauldin, realtor with Watson Realty Corp. He can get you set up. You guys support our sponsors. Thank you so much, Andy. We appreciate you, brother. And dude, this is awesome. I'm glad this worked. I literally, I got a message from you? Was it last week?
Yeah, something like that.
It was like, I mean, literally, it was kind of like out of the blue. Hey, man, I'm going to be passing through Gainesville.
It was like,
what day?
7 days longer than the first time I reached out. Like, I gave you way more heads up than the first time.
Yeah, 7 days compared to 1 day is great.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I was like, you're going to be on Tuesday night? I'm like, I'm recording a podcast on Tuesday night. I was like, wait, let me see if I can reschedule this other guest, and we'll just do a podcast as a catch up. It'll be great.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm sitting there in Boston trying to unplug for a quick weekend away, and skimming through the emails, just making sure there's nothing like super important. And I see this one that says, check it out, all caps, and I was like, what? And I saw like Heath and Alyssa podcast, and I was like, nah. I'm like, okay, I'm actually gonna read this one. So I was super excited to hear it, but. But yeah, thanks for coming on. It's awesome to catch back up. And
Safe travels, man. Keep me posted.
Appreciate it.
Gainesville World, go check them out. HeathAndAlyssa.com. Follow their journey. World, we appreciate you guys so much. This is the WHOA GNV podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa, whoa.
There it
We
is.
will see you later. Bye.